think it's been a very bleak year for race equality in 2011, with recession, rise in racism, and obviously the riots in the summer. We've had, I suppose, popular culture and people that represent that, where those elements around race, racism and race equality do not seem to be on the agenda. We've had the president of FIFA talk about racism doesn't exist on the football pitch and outside of it. And then we had other commentators as a result of the riots talk about white people have now become like black people in a very pejorative way. Also, in relation to our influence, equalities organisations and particularly race equality organisations have lost their place at the government table for informing and shaping policy. So there is no BME-led or equalities-led organisation that sits at the table that's backed by the Office of Civil Society. And then thirdly, a lack of action, I think, on addressing race equality. We're all frustrated by the absence of a race equality strategy, even though the Committee on Elimination of Racism, a European Union-backed body, recommended that UK should have an equality strategy where the progress can be monitored and look at equalities and human rights in the whole. So I think when you put those three things together, it has been a very bleak year. Part of it, I think, has been that people feel that race has been done, that it's been a tick box exercise, and that we now move on to something else, particularly on the back of the Equality Act, which brought together a whole range of the wider protected characteristics. And so with having additional characteristics and duties to comply with, race, gender and disability seem to kind of have fallen in the background. And our concern, obviously, at Voice for Change England and Race Equality Foundation and many others, is to particularly look at equalities with an issue that looking at race in the forefront. So I think the Equalities Act, although it has strengthened across a range of characteristics, somehow has given licence to those who may not have wanted to deal with equality generally, as giving them an excuse and a licence to actually drop race down the agenda and look at other things, and it's given licence to that way of thinking. Thinking about a resolution for 2012, I kind of think of let's refresh, let's re-energise and let's invigorate the work that we're doing together, and I would look at it in a couple of ways. First of all, let's learn from the women's movement and the disability movement on how they have got their issues on the agenda, and the media is supporting that in terms of how they've projected and made sure that their issues are in the national press. And I think the BME sector and race as a sector in terms of looking at that hasn't necessarily got the same coverage. So we need to learn about how they've done that. The work that Voice for Change is doing together with Race Equality Foundations and many others in coming together to form the BME Voluntary Sector Coalition is about us speaking together as a voice on race equality to challenge racism and to influence those power structures so that we can, in a way, together ensure that prejudice and discrimination don't limit people's expectations of what they can achieve as a result of their race or their ethnicity. And so that coalition working together, I think, is a good way of going forward. And thirdly, we at Voice for Change we were able to secure a small grant from an independent funder to bring the government-backed strategic partners together only last week to look at how they, as the organisations that are recognised as representing the diversity of the sector, how are they going to meet the needs of disadvantaged and BME communities and provide them with information and really make some connections so that they are better able to address and meet needs, but also recognising that they can't do it all, that there is a role for specialist organisations, and how to make those connections better. So I'm hoping that we can influence them Well, it's very interesting this year, isn't it, that we saw the Equality Act being part of the red tape challenge, and whether aspects of it should be completely ditched because government felt it was being too bureaucratic and onerous. I'm really pleased to see that there was such a lot of support from a range of organisations that actually wanted the Equality Act to stay intact because that was needed to go forward. And I think what we need to do within our sector and wider is to use the Equality Act to strengthen our case and to ensure that government doesn't have an excuse to water it down or dilute it, and that we need to use that act together with other tools and levers to strengthen our case for social justice.